Deep in a remote part of the wilderness of Greece, a man trudged through the foliage, a small pack of provisions on his back, a walking stick in one hand, and a rope in the other. He pulled on it, and a tired, huffing goat hurried to keep up. Why come to the wilderness with prey in hand? Sweat dripped down his brow, owls hooted into the skies, and a far-off jungle cat pounced on its prey. The sudden cry into the night spooked the goat at the man's side. It took off bleating and braying. It pulled on the rope so hard in its fear, the rope was pulled taut. The man was forced to run after it or be dragged. The frightened goat ran this way and that. It dipped past trees, ran through bushes, and ducked under vines. On a wild chase, the goat led them both. The man tried his best to avoid the thorns and jutting branches, but with no luck. He tried barking commands to his goat, and he pulled on the rope, but to no avail. He dug his heels into the dirt, and finally it was enough to slow the beast. I watched it all from the canopy of leaves. My huntresses had reported a mortal in our current hunting grounds, and we watched from the trees above, assessing his purpose, his intent. Usually mortals come to the wilderness to partake in our endeavours, hunting. But the goat was an odd addition. We followed their movements with ease and saw as they both collapsed, left panting on the grass in a small clearing. There he tied the goat down and slung his fresh pack off his back. It was obvious. He was new to the wilderness, green and naive. It was plain to see this man was no hunter. From the fine clothes on his back to his attempt to pitch his shelter, it all reeked of inexperience. My companions looked on, dispersed in the tree line, watching and waiting. The nymphs among them stifled giggles at the sight of his attempts. They wait for my signal, but I do not give it. I wish to see what he was doing. Away from the worlds of mankind, seldom do we cross mortals, and none like the one before us now. As we watched, he finished his shoddy cover that would do naught to keep out the cold and rain. A fire that would not catch, for he had stacked the logs too tightly. The fool does not know to let it breathe, and nature will do the work. He pulled out provisions, dried meats and carefully wrapped breads to feed himself. He did not even attempt to catch his own. I do not doubt he would fail if he tried. He unpacked books, scrolls, parchment, a wax tablet and a stylus. Just as my curiosity was waning, he brought out a small metallic bowl, and it caught the moonlight. He took a branch of wood and collected a flame from his pathetic fire, and lit the inside of the bowl. The oil had caught the light, and fed the flame as he began to chant. A ritual, with words I knew well. All gods do. He was saying the sacred words to give an offering. Tribute was his purpose after all, to show his devotion, but not without a string attached. He brought forth the goat and produced a knife from his pack. He walked toward the goat, flashing the blade. Another mistake. The goat panicked but could not run far, so the would-be executioner took hold of the rope and slashed wildly. Unpracticed and lacking in precision, he caught the neck by luck. Though I could see he intended to strike the neck. He was surprised when he did so. He had the knowledge of where to strike, to make it quick, but his hand shook. Blood spilt from the goat's neck onto the ground, and he froze, watched in horror as it kicked and writhed on the floor, bleating weakly. He went from a statue to a blur as he gripped the knife in his hands tighter, with both clasped around the handle. He stopped shaking, stepped forward and plunged it into the chest of the writhing goat. It made contact with the heart, but the beast kept wiggling and screaming. With a twist, he sunk the knife in deeper, and he whispered his prayer over the creature as it took its last breath. My huntresses in the trees grew impatient, and with a flick of my wrist and the flash of a signal, all but 2 departed, sighs in the air, for they had hoped he would make fine prey. A good hunt they itched for. But there was something in this novice. His determination. It surprised me. I did not believe he had it in him. To finish the goat off, it took guts for a fledgling to do. My companions went to hunt elsewhere, though 2 stayed. Cyrene and Polybia. Cyrene was an older girl, and Polybia, still resembling a child, moved in the tree canopy silently to sit beside me. We 3 watched the man below turn and heave. On all fours he retched for a few minutes, though nothing came up. Once he regained his composure, he prepared the goat as best he could, hacking at it, skinning it in strips and chunks, until he dropped slabs of flesh and fat into the bowl. It mixed with the burning oil. He took a handful of something from a leather pouch and threw it onto the flames. Sparks of strange hues burst in a flash of coloured stars. The gifts of Prometheus did not usually act so aggressive. It was the powder, but I did not know what it was. The flesh and the fats burnt quickly. A thick plume of smoke rose up from the bowl. He made his pleas aloud, completing the ritual as he bowed his head and whispered the final words. He wanted an audience, to speak with me face to face. I did not know his intent. I thought I knew his heart, but with this offering, with his great sacrifice and journey to this land, and clear dedication, this was not his place, nor his ordinary life. Yet he came. He killed the goat when he could have run. He had the courage to put it out of its misery. Perhaps he had a hunter's heart after all. I did not know, but I wanted to. Few that wander this far make it out of the woods alive, and yet here this inexperienced man is. I decided to grant this strange mortal his request. He posed no threat, but I am no fool. I would have strings of my own. I nodded to my companions, their eyes widened, and I clicked my fingers. In a flash, we went from sitting imperceptible in the canopy above to appearing suddenly before the man, a shower of silver light heralding our appearance. The 3 of us rode in my chariot, Cyrene to my left, Polybia to my right. We wore matching leather huntress gear, skirts to the knee, with strong archer's braces and shoulder slings. The silver metal of the chariot shone in the light of his offering fire. The rays of bright moonlight centered on us like a spotlight. The stags put on a show, as if we had run from far and happened upon him. Their horns a bright gold, and fire wisped from each nostril as they breathed. Shocked and startled, the man fell into the dirt. His eyes never left the chariot as it came to a perfect stop before him. A smile grew and fixed itself on his face. We 3 girls with our heads held high, armed with shining bows and arrows. He raised his blood-stained hands and lowered his head, deeply in respect.
Goddess Artemis, I thank you for your presence. I truly did not expect you to answer the call of a lowly scholar. I am more grateful than you could fathom. noble and divine goddess, I hope this meeting may benefit us both.
How? I spoke, and he clasped his red hands over his ears. He shrunk back, scrambled away on the floor. One of my companions, Cyrene, bent down and informed me that mortals have delicate ears. I forget. Their bodies and senses are so weak and delicate. Apollo oft forgets he can speak normally with me, as he talks with mortals often. I recall his voice. When I speak to Aethon again, I try to match Apollo's volume. I asked again in a whisper, and it did not seem to pain him. Aethon whipped his head back to me and slowly got to his feet as I asked him, how would this benefit me? What could you offer that I would want?
My goddess, of all the gods and goddesses in your family, your tales, your very life, are known the least by mankind. I am not just a scholar. I am Aethon of Ephesus, and I intend my work to be celebrated for eons to come. A record of the lives of mortals. My words and records of our time will become the foundation of history for the people to come. I have studied the tales of many in your family, even your twin brother, the mighty god Apollo. There is much known and told about them in cities far and wide. Yet my studies and searching have given me little of you, fine goddess. Rumors and whispers, tales pass through different mouths. It is hard to find first-hand accounts, if any accounts exist at all. I have traveled far to find you, goddess. Under advice, I brought the offerings of my best goat. All this in hope that you would grace me with your presence and tell me your life, that I might be one of the first historians to record the tales of the gods. I could bring your deeds to the world. You would be worshipped, praised, and with more prayers and offerings than ever before. You could be more revered than Apollo, or even Zeus himself. Your secrets are your own, of course. You are a goddess. But I ask that you might tell me all, so that I might record it all and share it with man. It would be my honor, goddess.
Your travels and offerings are worthy gifts to me, Aethon. I shall grant you your wish. You will hear my stories and my life. Though to truly hear everything, it shall take more time than you shall live. We shall speak until dawn. You may write your notes. You may ask your questions. But choose your words carefully. Do not lie. I seldom trust men nor mortals, but for your sacrifice, I shall grant you this. He beamed up at me with a glint in his eyes. Some might call it excitement, but I knew the truth of the twinkle in his eye. I would play along, for now. I stood tall as he scrambled to retrieve his writing tools. I set my bow down and crouched down by his spluttering fire. I pulled my knife from its sheath on its belt and shifted his stacked logs. Gaps created in the tight wood pile allowed the winds to breathe life into it. It burst up from the small crackles into a roaring flame. The last of my companions brought logs to the light, 3 together and 1 opposite. We sat in that break in the trees, and I said to the mortal, "You say the mortals do not know me, yet you are here. You have brought an offering and spoken my name. Tell me, Aethon, what do you know?"
You, my goddess Artemis, are the twin sister of Apollo, children of Zeus and Leto, the titaness of motherhood. You are the goddess of the hunt, protector of women and young girls, known to roam the wilds and forests with your companions, the huntresses of Artemis. A goddess of purity and chastity, you and your ladies share in the vow. I am honored by your presence, and honored still to be the first mortal man to hear your tale and present it to the world.
I had to stop my eyes from rolling at the obvious flattery. Very good, Aethon. What do you wish of me?
How you felt, what you have done, what mortals you have met. What of your other godkin, of course? Just as much as you can tell me before dawn. But start from the beginning, my goddess, and spare no detail.
His tone irritated me. So smug. But it had been some time since I had spoken of old times. I let myself indulge in my brother's favourite pastime, talking of myself to a captive mortal audience. I asked Aethon, where should I begin?
Do you remember your birth?
Of course. Do you not? I turned to my right, for my companions were both once mortal. She shook her head. Aethon himself shook his own. I remembered then why I did not converse with mortals often. Forgetful, fragile creatures. I contained my sigh and knew my patience would wear thin. Cyrene and Polyboa rose with a nod and brought forth skins of wine and a hollowed-out horn. I took the horn, and a wineskin was passed to Aethon. My companion shot an eyebrow, half confusion and half annoyance. I answered her look with one of my own, and she went back to her log beside me. All would be revealed, but even so I had Gaia's old words echo in my head. Offerings require an answer. It is the way of the universe. I had a long drink. Aethon dropped his own wineskin in the dirt beside him. Instead, he licked his quill before dipping it in ink and hovering it above a fresh parchment.
From the beginning, then, if you would be so kind, my goddess.
It is true, my mother was scorned by Hera, forced to run from all the lands of Gaia, the earth. Hera, for her title as Queen of the Gods, we all must hail her. Her power is only held by her connection to my father. This entanglement, the sacred marriage bond, is more like a shackle to them both. Zeus, though he be king, he still has his weaknesses. His lady wife, and everyone he lusts for besides her. Thus he must bend to her tears on occasion, or at least appear to. He could not defend my mother openly. Thus my mother was cast out of Olympus. Yet he did not leave her entirely alone. He did love her. He went to my uncle Poseidon, and with the aid of Gaia, he created a new island, Ortygia. Delos. It has had many names. Here, Leto would be free from the wrath of his wife and the betrayal of the world. For my mother went throughout these lands, only to be abandoned, shunned, and cast out by all. Even monsters stalked her down. The great Python lingered in the waters. It waited in the seas as she took refuge on Ortygia. There Leto hid and waited for her labours to come, but they did not. The wretched wife of Zeus brought her daughter, Ilithyia, to her side. She made my mother's labours slower, more painful than any mortal could bear. My poor mother, stuck in the endless cycle of contractions. In the dark warmth of her body, I heard her heart drumming. We felt her panic, heard her cries, felt the muscles around us writhing. I was borne first onto the coarse sands and rough ground. A bright light blinded me at first. Leto's high-pitched, piercing screams. I remember the cold air, but most of all, blood. It covered us both, coated my skin and stained the earth below. And it kept coming. The blood did not stop. The first thing I truly saw was her blood and pain, my mother, her body split and flesh ripped apart. All I wanted was to stop her cries. The divinity in my blood, it heard that want and answered my call. What takes mortal children years to age, I did in seconds. From a helpless babe grown into a child, I did not stand idle on my new legs, and I ran. I went to fetch water and brought it back to my mother. She drank between her cries, and I held her hand in mine, my tiny fist, only used to Apollo's small grip. Her hand felt like a giant to me then. I soothed and encouraged her as best I could as she bared down. Apollo's head began to crown, and I saw the moment my twin entered the world. I saw as he tore her open further, and then I decided I would never suffer through that myself. Apollo glowed with bright light, and we held hands as we stood. Our mother's blood still coated us as we rapidly matured, until we were fully grown gods, and we tended to Leto, gathered the softest leaves, and made a fire to warm her. We let her rest, for she was weak from the torment of Ilithyia. As she drifted to sleep, the snake, Python, that waited in the waters, reared its ugly head. It lashed out at us. It slithered its neck between the trees above us, snapped its jaws at us wildly. Leto, pale and passed out. Python seized the trees with his jaws and pulled them root and all from the ground. Apollo grabbed a branch and threw one to me. I screamed at the beast and beat at its neck. I led it away as Apollo carried our mother to safety. Through the trees and to the beach I ran. My small hands clutched vines, and I secured the sharpest rock to my branch. With my spear, I stabbed at the scaled, limbless body. The creature roared in pain and went to lunge for me, but an object whisked through the air. It hit Python hard, and he fell back into the water. Apollo stood behind me, a wooden stick and a string, crudely made, but it was a bow and arrow in his hands. Python lunged out the water and struck again. We were surprised and both easily knocked to the ground. Our weapons clattered onto the stones. I snatched up the closest thing, and my fist found the bow. Apollo grabbed the spear. He charged and slashed the monster. Scales and blood fell around him, and Python wailed into the skies. I found an arrow and notched the bow, drew back the string and loosed it, as natural as breathing. It shot straight over Apollo's head and into the eye of Python. With a final roar at us both, he slipped back under the waves, swam away in the waters. He ran to Delphi. We went back to our mother and rested. All of us were exhausted. There we stayed on that isle, Leto and I. Apollo went to hunt Python and returned with his scales when he did best the beast for good. I took a long drink from my horn, and my huntresses refilled it.
I have, my goddess, heard of the island of Delos, and this tale of Python is sure to titillate all. Though I have heard of this tale, and it is more the fight of Apollo. You stayed on the isle of Delos with Leto, though I have heard from priests of Apollo of your ascension to Olympus. When was this?
The eagle above us imparted all it saw to Zeus on high, though Hera already knew with Eilithyia at her side. She could not stop it, however much she tried. Leto, Apollo, and I were summoned to Mount Olympus. We were greeted with celebrations, roaring crowds, and the warm welcome of my father. Risen and brought into the fold of our godly family, he announced us to the crowds. Apollo shone as brightly as the sun. His light only made the roar of the crowds grow. He loved the grand halls, the people, the music, the food, all of it. I was in awe too, at first. It is grand, Olympus, far more expansive than the small isle of our birth. My mother, Leto, was home at last. Our aunts and uncles smiled and nodded to her, as if they had not just ignored her plight. All wore smiles and cheered. All but Hera. She stewed and seethed, her gaze so cold it felt sharp, her eyes like daggers at us both. But she could do no true harm now. I smiled at her, spiteful and smug, held my head high as Zeus ushered us up to present ourselves to all. I stood in front of her as he announced our names and new gifts. Apollo and Artemis. We were now respected and honored. 2 chariots were brought into the throne room, one golden with Helios at the helm, the Titan god of the sun. Apollo was to learn under Helios and take up a position on the chariot. In time, Helios would pass the reins onto him. As Zeus placed a golden wreath upon his head, I was distracted by the shining silver of the other chariot. The metal was intricately designed, and the Titan goddess of the moon, Selene, stood at its helm. I was granted a place at her side to learn and discover my powers better before becoming a goddess of the moon. A silver wreath placed upon my darker locks. Then I felt the eyes of the crowd center on me, all of them curious and hungry to see what I was, who I was. I felt like a caged animal, a piece of meat ready to be chewed up and swallowed down. Where Apollo reflected their joy back, I tried, but could not. I felt too exposed in front of them all. Too many people. Yet I felt alone. I tried to take Apollo's hand, as he had been my comfort since our birth. But his hands were waving to the crowds. He brushed me off in favor of them. He was eager to impress the muses and to hone his skills in prophecy with our Titan aunts. He wrote poetry, composed songs, and paraded the sun across the skies. With the sights, the sounds, the smells, it was all my brother had longed for since our birth on that isle. For he had felt something missing. I knew it. He longed for more. I could hear it in his voice as he sang to us by the firelight. Leto and I were his only companions in birth, but on Olympus, he was content, and he was whole, with nymphs and dryads and comely deities everywhere. The pet projects of Prometheus and Epimetheus came about, and he loved it even more. Prometheus's creations made him happier. The cities and towns that had merged only enthralled him further. Civilizations and creatures to love his gifts. That was what he had been missing. That is his purpose and his passion. In the halls of Olympus, I felt what Apollo had on the island. We may be twins, but we are not the same. His sense of purpose and belonging came to him on Mount Olympus. Mine had come from that island on Delos. Those woods, hunting with that crude bow of string. Among the earth with my mother by my side, hunting for our sacrifices, quiet and calm, among the trees and foliages, tracking down prey, and when you finally find them, to pull back a bow, feel the muscles in my arm drawn taut like the string, as it rests against my lips, and the entire world becomes still. Not a single sound. As I breathe out and release the arrow. The second between the arrow whistling in the wind and the thud as it makes contact. My time on Olympus took me away from the wilds. That is where I understood Apollo's longing. As his purpose was found, mine was lost, stripped from me. I took to sleeping in my quarters away from the crowds. I avoided the sunlight. I aided Selene in her chariot every night. This allowed me time away from the suffocating halls. I did not thrive like Apollo. I loved the darkness and the solitude of the night. Apollo's popularity grew. He won the favor of all, as too did my own, though I receded from court more and more. It only made me more intriguing to them. Apollo would report the words told to him and favor shown by various gods when we would meet in the gardens. The wildlife on the mountain and those gardens are still my favorite place on Olympus. And when I joined the revels and feasts, I felt the eyes, the men, godly and mortal alike, watched me as I ate and danced. I saw their intent, could feel their lust. They wanted to undress me. It made me feel vulnerable and weak. I felt more unsafe on Olympus among the crowds than I did facing Python armed only with a stick. After the suffering I'd seen Leto endure, I was witness to even more here. For the mighty Hera, ever bewitched to her husband, forced to obey and bend to his will. Eros' spell was a curse upon men and women that drives them mad. And the mortal women? Easily destroyed at the hands of lustful men. I wanted nothing to do with it. I promised I would not let the lust of another change me. It became my vow to myself and to the world. I went to Zeus myself and swore in front of all the piercing eyes. I would not wed. I would not bend. And I would not stay on Mount Olympus. I had to leave. Everything felt wrong. The walls of the palace more like a cold marble prison. My father understood. It went against my very nature. Where he had known the world would not be right until his tyrant father was gone. My life and the world was not right if I stayed on Olympus. Apollo was upset at first, but he let me go with the promise that he could come to me whenever he wanted. Some gods' places are Olympus, others are drawn to wandering the world. It took time for Apollo to understand this. However, I would not walk the wilds alone, nor empty-handed. Zeus presented me with nymphs, women, and girls I had grown close with to accompany me in my hunts. They were the only comfort I had found in the throngs of deities. They had brought me joy. I was glad that I would not have to part with them, but I still gave them the choice, to stay or join me of their own free will. The Cyclopes of the forges had taken the shoddy bow and arrow of our birth. They had remade the design, better than before, in both gold and silver. One to Apollo, of course, and one to me.
Artemis picked up her bow again and held it out in front of her. A silver metal bow, the string itself refracted light like crystal. Rainbow flints of technicolor in the firelight. It looked too heavy to be a dowel, but as she turned it in her hands, it balanced on her palm. Perfectly balanced. The metal must have been a magical element I did not understand, lighter than any metal ever recorded. I reached out to touch it, and Artemis pulled it out of reach, placed it so it leant beside her again. I quickly got to writing a description in my notes, 2 simple diagrams that would never capture its essence. It was sublime, the greatest weapon I had ever seen.
This has been my weapon ever since I received it. Apollo has a similar weapon, of course, but there are distinct differences. As soon as I had left Olympus, I went to the forests and began a hunt. It felt so right to be away from the judgmental eyes and among the grandmother once more. The creatures of Epimetheus are my preferred company. It lasted months, with many prey caught, but one that eluded me. For it was there where I first caught wind of a group of Elephoi chrysokoroi.
The golden-horned deer, the ones that pull your chariot. I have heard sparse rumors that there is still one free. Did you fail to capture it, my goddess? How did the creature escape you?
Do not interrupt me whilst I am speaking, Aethon, or we shall stop speaking and you will have your tongue removed for insulting a goddess. When a god graces you with her presence, you do not interrupt nor suggest she failed at her hunt. The deer were all caught. Yet I let the Ceryneian hind wander in my sacred groves. Although I hunt animals, it is in celebration of nature. A sacred ritual to show appreciation. This was just another part of it. Their siblings pull my chariot across the skies, but the hind walks free. Golden-horned deer that have been loyal to me for years. It took time, but I caught them with cunning, perseverance, and skill. I am the greatest hunter to walk this earth. I was free, armed with a weapon from the forges of Mount Olympus. I felt unstoppable, but I took the time to speak with Gaia. For though my father is king, he has sides I do not understand. The great-grandmother that raised him, the company of my mother, and the loyal nymphs bonded in friendship. I understand far greater. His lust is an obvious hindrance, and the earth ages older. She saw the time of creation. Gaia plotted against her husband the very skies for the suffering he brought upon the universe, and her. The pain when her son followed suit on the path of his father. She spoke to me of my grandfather, Kronos, and my great-grandfather, Uranus. Her strength in plotting and defeating not one tyrant, but 2. I hope it never befalls my father that he follows the blood of our ancestors, but he did absorb his first wife.
The companions at her side, Cyrene and the other, gasped at that, but Artemis raised her hand for a moment, and they both regained composure.
But Gaia rose against my father. Do you mortals know that? Answer me, Aethon. You may speak.
No, I have never heard of such things, my goddess.
My part was small. Gaia rose with her sons, the Gigantes, the giants. I once killed her son in the war between gods and giants. Aegeon, I shot him with this very bow. But the Gigantomachy, This is the name we call the wall, is too long for this night. Her fight did not end with the death of her sons. No, she took her grief for all her lost family. Those lost in the Titanomachy, and then the Gigantomachy too. She went to Tartarus, a primordial god like her, more a space than a person. Yet the oldest of gods plotted together. Their powers combined, and they made a monster. It was like no monster ever made, and has had no equal since. 100 heads and fists of snakes, too big for you to even conceive. A monster from the earliest times of mortals, that made the gods shudder and run with fear. All the Olympians and Titans left. We ran across the globe. All but Zeus. Zeus stayed behind to fight. It took time, but he defeated him. For Typhon was a force of pure chaos. Even Gaia and Tartarus could not control him. And he was set to destroy us all, even the earth itself. Zeus saved us. Gaia knew she had let her grief take her too far, and expected her grandson to punish her for her part too, for her rebellion and for her mistakes in the past. If he were another Uranus or Kronos, he would have. And Zeus forgave her. Mercy. He understood all that she had lost, all the children and pain inflicted upon her by her husband, just as Kronos had tormented his own mother, Rhea. Zeus's understanding shows that he is no tyrant, but love, husbands, children, they are no domain of mine, though many have tried to change that.
Artemis paused then. She gripped the handle of her bow lightly. Her cold, intense gaze dropped to the fire below us. For a while, she just watched the flames. At that moment, my sight changed. Like heat waves, she flickered from the woman I saw before to a young girl, a child in hunting armor, small and innocent. Then the mirage faded. I blinked, and she was a woman again. I dared not speak a word.
Aethon of Ephesus, I have met mortal men and divine. They are not so different. They get the same look in their eyes, and I know you have heard whispers pass through mortal mouths, for your own tongue betrayed it in your flattery. Tell me what you know. I want to hear the watered-down idle rumors you mortals spread.
Her silver eyes fixed back on me then, and I felt pinned to the floor. I could not take it. I broke the gaze and stared into the fire myself. My seat felt more uncomfortable. A sweat began to form on my skin. I took a breath and racked my mind as the silence grew. A name burst into my head, and I said to the goddess, I do not know of the war of the giants, the Gigantomachy, but I know of the giants Eloidae. It is said that they stormed Olympus itself. They tried to seize Queen Hera, and you, my goddess, to marry you both. But in your cunning, you transformed into a doe, moving to and fro. But as you spun them all around, and they aimed their spears, they set to strike, and you ran between them. When they threw their weapons, they struck one another. With both dead at your hands, a perfect plan, my goddess. One I pieced together through rigorous study.
Is that so? Well, it is a good description of the event, though it did not fully capture the might of the giants. The Alaudae brothers were brutal and strong. You know of my sudden trick to turn the unstoppable forces on one another. They believed themselves the hunters, for I took the form of prey. But they were my prey. A man as well versed as you, with such dedication. Tell me more.
More, my goddess? I know only of this event, if wished betrothal. There could be more, I am sure.
Oh, Aethon, you do not surprise me. There are many more tales, numerous. I can name them. Mortals like Aethon. Do you know his name? O great scholar.
I did not speak, but I felt I had read it before, and heard it once. I did not dare refute her, for I could not recall specifics. But that name, Aethon, I remembered a prince of Thebes and Boeotia, who went missing, lost in the woods, along with his hunting dogs.
A mortal hunter. He spied upon me, caught me unarmed and unarmored. The same look in him as in the giants, and I transformed. But not myself. No, I changed him. This time it was he who was the doe. His hunting dogs barreled after him as he ran away on his new hooves. When they caught up, they tore him apart, and we held a revel where he fell. We danced and drank. I tried to forget what could have happened, and what I saved myself from. I had defeated another who had come to take what was not theirs, and yet more came. Buphagus, an Arcadian man who came to hunt me in the night. He fell to my arrows. He did not even see me, for I was in the trees above. Then Alpheus caught sight of me, a river god, and he took his time to follow me. My huntresses saw him for weeks at the edges of our sport. With a revel on the morrow, he thought I was a fool, that I would not see him coming. That night I proposed a game to my companions, and they agreed. We all covered ourselves in mud. It coated our hands and hair, even our clothes. We looked indistinguishable from one another. And then the revel truly began. With the bonfires roaring, the moon high, our prey prepared and cooked. We danced and danced, blended with the muds and woods, and Alpheus came. He looked all night and could not decide which one of us was the true Artemis. Humiliated when we spread his intent and shame to all. We could not kill the river, but we bested him nonetheless. In his rage, he picked one of my handmaidens, Arethusa of Elis. She was a beauty and a dedicated huntress. Alpheus stalked her across the Isle of Ortygia, set on his revenge and relentless in his lust. I kept her close, but one day she slipped from my sight and I heard her cry. I ran through the forests, but as I broke into the clearing where they were, I saw his hand on her wrist, the other pulling at her clothes. I would not make it in time, and she begged me to stop him. I did. The only way I could. I transformed her. From a girl's form into a spring stream. Her body fell from his hands as he tried to grab the water. Even the divine fall to lust and savagery. He was angered but stormed away. He realized the futility of his acts. I would not give up, so he did instead. I took Arethusa in her water form to be the holy spring of my shrine on the Isle of Syracuse. It hurt to lose her physical form, not her spirit. I took to spending more time with Persephone. She and Arethusa were much alike. I was often found in the meadows and fields of Demeter with the young Persephone. Then she too was whisked away by Hades. I wished I had been there that day. Then I might have stopped it. I felt so helpless in the wake of it. It was not just my life that was affected. It was all. The next man that came for me was named Cypraeotes. He found the place I bathed and I saw red. I had had enough and I transformed him, but this time into a woman. This one would learn what it felt like to be preyed upon. There are more, but I do not remember all their names. Why should I remember the men who came to hurt me, to take what they want? Brave to come at a goddess with so cowardly an act. I am thankful they chose me, and I got to deal with them myself. Apollo and I even saved our mother from the same fate. A Phoenician giant named Tityos saw her as she passed through the lands of Panopeus to Pytho. He seized her and she cried out for someone to save her. In my night ride across the skies, I shot at him immediately. Apollo quickly came to my side at the call, and we hunted the giant down together. Shot him so full of arrows, his body looked like a porcupine when we were done. Hermes promised us, when he took the soul of Tityos to Tartarus, that he would suffer. His soul stretched out upon a field. There the eternal eagles would feed off his organs. Every day he stayed in the darkest depths of the underworld. Now you see, Aethon, why I do not allow men into my hunt. Ask your questions, but you will be gone at dawn.
My goddess, I will be on my way at dawn's light. Permit my ink be dry in the morning light. All this will be worthless if I cannot read my notes. However will I get it as accurate as possible, with smudged notes? Your words would not be verbatim, but an approximation. I must collect your beautiful words exactly as they are, my goddess, for this will go down in history, after all.
I know your only passion is your work, but do you know of the effects of man, truly? I cannot count the women in the world that have been hurt by men. Unwanted regard can be fatal. Wished betrothal is a naive way to put it, Aethon. Anyone can become savage, not care at all about civility, decorum, and consent. Many times there has been no punishment, but I am a hand of justice when I can be. Apollo and I took pride when we brought vengeance to those who betrayed our mother. Not just Tityos. During her pregnancy, the whole city of Arcadia had been convinced to shut their doors. When she had nowhere, they pushed her out. Prince Laemon, a son of the king Tadjates, had spoken to him, wormed his way in with words. Apollo and I went to find the culprit, searched the city and quickly honed in on the royal family. Apollo had spoken with his brother. Prince Laemon attacked him. Right there in the hall, he cut down his own kin. Laemon was afraid he had revealed his part and named him as the transgressor. We knew one of the princes was to blame. He had revealed his part himself. I shot him for it, but it was not clean. He screamed and I kept up the game. I shot him over and over, but not in any vital spots. No, the mercy of a quick death was taken from him. I stripped him of it. Quivers of arrows, and multiple hours later, he finally died. Know that I protect these huntresses as fiercely as I have defended my mother. But I will not have men among my ranks, for they have had similar experiences and just want to live in peace.
You are noble and wise. Fear not, my goddess. I have no intent to harm you. I know with certainty I would be dead if it were not for your grace, and I thank you for it. You and Apollo have punished many. I heard a rumor of a woman named Niobe. She is rumored to be a stone statue on the top of Mount Sipylus in Anatolia. You must know what happened to her. Long have we mortals debated. I should wish to be the first to record the true events.
Niobe. I remember that woman. The child of Tantalus, a man trapped in the deepest pit of Hades for his crimes. Few mortals rest in Tartarus for eternity. The apple did not fall far from the tree. Their bloodline is too full of pride. She was married to Amphion of Thebes, a queen for a time. She bore him 7 daughters and 7 sons. She was famed for her fecundity. Yet, she said she was better than the goddess of motherhood herself. My mother Leto only having bore 2 children. Compared with her army, my mother could not take the insult, for our birth had torn her insides. She was unable to conceive more, and without the love of Zeus, she did not wish to. But this pompous woman had hurt her gravely. Leto called for us, her loyal children, and we brought down her fury. Apollo made it a competition. Who could shoot their prey fastest? I took the girls, and he took the boys. What a mother she was, when she saw her whole litter dead at her feet. I beat Apollo with minutes to spare. He was far too slow.
But if I may inquire, what of Orion, the hunter?
Orion? He came to us here after banishment. I never knew what for, but he was a loyal friend. We spent many years hunting together in the wilds. This drew the attention of my twin. Apollo loves to be the exception to my rule. He does not like to share. And I was fond of Orion. His skill in hunting brought a challenge I had not known in years. Yet, I was still better. There was something about his tactics that were different, though. It was refreshing, and it worked in tandem with my own. His tracking abilities offered insight and surprised me. One idle afternoon, he said beside a magnificent lake, as he walked across the water.
What do you mean he walked upon the water? Surely you mean beside it, my goddess.
So it seems you do not know Orion as well as you thought, Aethon. He was a son of Poseidon, and through his father's blood he was of enormous size, and could walk on water as if it was solid earth. He was an extraordinary man, but he claimed that he would kill all of the animals in the world. A joke. For if he had meant it, I would have struck him down myself. But Gaia heard a rumor of the threat and became furious. Though I did not know it at the time, Apollo went to Gaia. He had built a grudge against Orion, and they ended up plotting together. Gaia created a scorpion with venom more potent than any before, as if 100,000 stings had been packed into one stinger. Apollo took this scorpion, killed it and ground it up, into a fine, venomous paste. He spread it on an arrowhead. When Orion went fishing for a whale, for he had never caught one before, Apollo knew it was time. Orion moved far away from our usual hunting grounds, and Gaia caused a further distraction. She had made the flowers that my companions had been growing bloom at the right moment. They were drawn away. Apollo waltzed up to me after appearing from thin air as I finished skinning a buck. A mischievous smile on my twin's face. My mood was grim already, so it did not take him much work. He knows how to push my buttons easily. He stoked the fires, and I was riled up, eager to get him to shut up. When he claimed he was a better archer, I wanted to pull the golden locks right from his head. And he would have deserved it, but he knew how to direct my rage. He suggested I could not hit a dark shape in the distance. Even with our divine sight, it was just a shadow. I did not even speak to correct him. In my rage to prove I was better, I simply notched my bow and fired. With the arrow, Apollo held out to me. The bolt flew true and hit the dark smudge. The shape fell, and Apollo burst out, laughing. He slung his arm over my shoulder, met my confusion with a sigh of relief. He then let me in on the joke, as he put it. He told me the plot of Gaia and himself, the scorpion's sting to take down the giant predator. Apollo proclaimed I was too blind to see him for what he was, too good to grace him with my company. I shoved my brother off me, refused to listen to him, and ran to find the hunter. I hoped he was injured only, that he somehow lived through the shot. But I was wrong. Gaia's poison was too effective, and the bolt too accurate. He was cold when I found him. His body had sunken under the waves, and his skin was pruning. I did not let this deed go unanswered. I love my brother as fiercely as he loves me. It is not without its complications. I know that Apollo mistook my closeness with Orion as love. It was not. It was merely companionship, an understanding that was shared between us. He had the same need for the hunt, the same desire to focus on the prey and catch them together, able to go days without speaking a word, but working silently, in harmony. He felt different, reserved and controlled. I have met many hunters before and since, yet few were like Orion. Only he and Hippolytus have I ever understood.
This is why you had him placed amongst the stars, then? Because he was different. And Hippolytus? I have heard the name in stories of Aphrodite. What connection have you to him?
Hippolytus is yet to come, but we will speak of him soon. I wanted to commemorate Orion, partly for the guilt of being the one to strike him down. It was Apollo's trick, yet I delivered the killing blow. Zeus placed his body among the stars to form the constellation. Orion the hunter, with Scorpius, the Scorpion constellation, placed on the opposite side, the mortal enemies that would never meet again. It is a comfort to look up and see him there, still hunting in the skies.
I am sorry you lost your friend, my goddess. His stars have always been my favorite in the skies. You spoke of other hunters. Who are these? Immortal companions or mortal men?
Like my brother, they boasted about being better than I at hunting. Mortals with too much hubris and arrogance. I am the embodiment of the hunt, the feeling of pursuit and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. None can surpass me. Even Apollo may joke, but we both know who the better hunter is. Just as he is the best poet and musician, with a voice that outdoes even the muses. He jokes, but would never truly think himself above me. We are just competitive. We strive for more of ourselves, ever improving. But mortals, they are no match. Adonis, a prince and hunter of Cyprus, boasted himself to be above me. His boasting was cut short with a wild boar I had sent. He could have proven himself. I gave him the opportunity. But the small boar bested him. Its tusk burst his belly. Ancaeus, another mortal man of Arcadia, who joined a sprawling hunt. For many had gathered to slay the Caledonian boar. For the king at the time, Oenus, Ancaeus did not even take my usual effort. I just let the boar be. He fell far too early and was torn in two on its tusks. Such a big mouth, and with so much guts. It was a disappointment to see how much he screamed. Broteus followed in his family's footsteps. All had insulted my family one way or another. He decided he was different. Thought he could boast himself above and be spared from consequence. Their family was mad. His father, Tantalus, tortured in Tartarus for his crimes. His sister, Niobe, full of pride, as you know. He would fall into the same trap as his kin, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. I just made his mind match his mad words. In his delusion, he threw himself onto a fire and burnt up. That was the end of Broteus. Phalaeus, the king of Ambracia in Epirus, thought himself a better hunter than the goddess of hunting. He had his chance to prove himself too. But the lion I sent made a meal of him instead. Mortals think themselves above the gods. Such pride and ego is their own downfall. Do you not think, Aethon?
I agree, my goddess. Do you only punish those who boast to be above you? Or do you decree an insult? The Caledonian boar. You sent it to King Oeneus as punishment, if I remember correctly. Not just to kill the boastful Ancaeus.
Is it not obvious, Aethon? Hubris, arrogance, lies and deceit, promises not kept. Offerings to gods are owed, for we protect and punish, to teach you how to be. Divine sacrifice is promised to us all, and when man breaks that promise, consequences come. It is the way of things. It just is. King Oenus of Calydon in Aetolia, in the annual sacrifice of his first fruits of the season, all were given offerings, all but myself. The king forgot me. That is not something I take lightly. I sent the Caledonian boar as punishment, to ravage the lands and slay his people. The crops in the fields were feasted on and picked clean. Entire villages were lost to the mighty boar's tusks. It caused a great hunt, and many squabbles between the mortals and their tribes. When Prince Meleagros finally slayed the beast, it caused upset and a war broke out. The king did not forget his offering to me again. That was made certain. Admetus, Atreus, Melanippe, Bisa, Euthymia, and Polyphonte. I could name foolish mortals until dawn. It would take weeks for me to truly name them all. And there are many that I forget. Each was punished for their actions, for each forgot or slighted me in some way. Some were shot by my arrows. Others were changed into animals for the rest of their lives. Each got what they deserved.
These are individual actions. What of the Corinthians? An entire city that blames you and Aphrodite for a plague upon them. Is this true, my goddess?
The Corinthians. The whole city turned us away, my brother Apollo and myself, for after he had slain Python, we felt its blood on us. The fight we had had when we were but hours old, it hung over us like thick miasma. It tainted the very air around us. We went to the city of Corinth, for there we were to perform a ritual of purification to strip us of the stain. But the Corinthian people did not let us in. It was then we sent a plague upon them. Sickness spread like fire in a forest. For though we save and heal, Apollo and I possess the power to do the opposite. Corinth is not the only city to be punished by my hands. Melanippus and Cometho, a couple that took their sin to my temple. They were youths of Patras in Achaia. They used my sacred temple as their bedchamber and defiled it. They may have loved one another, but at an insult to me. Of all the gods' temples to debase, they chose one sworn to chastity? Salt in the wound, another layer of insult to their act. I sent a plague upon the city, for the sickness the youths had in their minds to do such a thing. Achaia's population hunted for the culprits, day and night. When they found them, they brought them back to my temple, and shut them inside. Then they bricked up the only entrance, and they were left to starve in the dark. A fine sacrifice for the things they had done. The city was spared its torment, but a lesson was learnt by all. Though Lygdamis was slow of study. He was a king of Scythia who led his armies against Lydia. Lygdamis had the intention of sacking my shrine at Ephesus. But a plague swept through his men. It stole their strength, their will, their hope, and finally, their lives. Dead men cannot sack a shrine. Astrabacus and Alapecus, princes of Sparta and Lacedaemonia. They suffered madness for witnessing my statue, meant for the eyes of pure maidens alone. They thought themselves worthy and paid the price. Leaders of cities are often not as pure as their people believe. Take Aristomelidas, ruler and despot of Archomenos in Arcadia. That vile creature of a man hoped to prey upon a girl, a Tegean maid, a virgin priestess of my order. But she learnt of his plots. For fear he would take what he wanted, no matter how long it took him. She could not live with the thought, the shame and the fear. Before he could lay a hand on her, she ended her own life. Do you see, Aethon? These are all lessons. All are a warning that the gods are not to be trifled with.
These are stories and events that I have never heard. I thank you, goddess. Once spread to the rest of the world, they will understand better. I must ask, you punished mortals, yet Apollo, your own brother, did trick you? Is this the reason for Corones? Was that Chion? Or was Chion revenge for Orion? One must get their facts straight, and I believe they are both reported to be lovers of Apollo. Both were struck down by yourself, my goddess.
The daughter of Daedalion of Attica told different people different names. Apollo knew her as one name, Hermes knew her as another, and I knew her by another name still. Chione, Lucono, Philonis. Whatever that wretch's name may be, I care not. She seduced my brother, and he fell in love with her. Fathered a child only for another to be birthed, with another father altogether. For Hermes loved her too. She bore Philemon, Apollo's son, and Autolycus, the son of Hermes. I had wanted to destroy her for what she put my twin through. The heartbreak he felt, beyond what mortals can even comprehend. But my brother begged me to spare her, for he could not see her harmed. Without cause but his, I let her be. Her pride caught up with her. She boasted to be fairer than I, for she had caught the eye of two gods, and I none. Her safety from the worship of both Apollo and Hermes allowed her vanity and pride to rule her tongue. Loose lips gave me my excuse. She never saw me coming. It felt so sweet to know she had sealed her own fate. I was justified in what I did, but she was no revenge for Orion. Coronis. She was shortly after my fine friend's death. Coronis was a princess of Tricca in Thessaly, beautiful and had Apollo shackled, mesmerized by her. She made him prove himself so many times before she loved him, yet he was obsessed. Due to bear their bundle of joy, I waited for her waters to break when I struck her down. Apollo was crushed, but not for long. For my twin is constantly trapped by the spell of Eros, the child of Aphrodite, loving those not worthy of it. My brother gives his heart to careless mortals. Coronis was no different. Of little honor, even when she had the love of a god, she strayed. Took a mortal lover on the side, even during her pregnancy with my brother's babe. He discovered her betrayal not long after her death. We joke of her often now.
It is good to know the gods struggle with their family as much as we mortals do. Though these tales have not given me much hope. Even with love comes betrayal. Mankind can be good, I swear it. We are not all sacrilegious and deceitful. Yet I know there are many. Examples to us all, and I will make sure of it. I know you have been betrayed before. I swear I will not. Your words will be kept and recorded as they are. I know the consequences of such acts now, thanks to your enlightening words and colourful descriptions.
I shall ask for illumination on something, Aethon. For you said, I know you have been betrayed before. To what do you refer to, precisely?
Well, my goddess, there are some that have betrayed your values and your trust, if my sources are to be believed. You mentioned stars earlier. Well, Callisto is a good example. Was she once a handmaiden of your order?
Yes, she was once part of my hunt. She broke the vow we all take, lied to us all. The filth that came from her mouth, the lies. It was an abomination. I will not repeat it, and do not look to my ladies to do so either, Aethon. For her crimes of broken chastity and her perjurous words to her once sworn goddess. My anger overflowed, and the fury sent a blast of power that transformed her. I stripped her of her mortal form and gave her the physical body of a bear. It was done in haste, yet those that betray their word are punished. She wandered the wilds for years. I kept eyes on her. Though she had betrayed us, my huntresses and I we still cared for her. When we found her son, a hunter who had wandered into her territory, they rushed to me, informed me of the hunter's intent and Callisto's imminent demise. It was then I called my father, and together we stopped what was about to happen. We took the frozen scene of Arcus, an inch from striking Callisto down, and transformed them both into the skies. They became stars, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. The Great Bear, Ursa Major, is Callisto, the mother. The little cub, Ursa Minor, is Arcus, the son and hunter. Spared the misery of kinslaying, celebrated in the stars.
It is a magnificent tale. To spare someone who has betrayed you from a death so undignified, it shows your mercy and your kindness. I finished writing the notes to this tale on my parchment and reached for another. The night had been long. I did not think, and it came right out. I notice you give out punishment yourself, my goddess. Does not Nemesis, the goddess of retribution, seek issue with this? I lowered my head as the silence grew.
I'm not like many in my family. I have responsibilities, but I handle my slights personally. Nemesis understands the hubris, the sheer arrogance of mankind. She is retribution. The power Prometheus gave them was only the start. You humans think so much of yourselves. You become blind to the world, to nature. Nemesis punishes many, but I can handle my own. Ever since Aura, I have handled them myself.
I have no record of an Aura, my goddess. Who is she?
Aura. She was a daughter of Lelantos and Periboa. Proud of her purity, though she be beautiful, she did not marry. And boasted, bragged and gloated. Then she accused me of being impure, too womanly of shape to be a true virgin. It was in my time on Olympus, and I went to Nemesis immediately. She promised me she would punish the girl. I had thought a transformation to show her hideous soul, or death to befall her. Nemesis did worse. The girl Aura lost her maidenhood by force. Nemesis had thought to punish her pride by taking that which she held pride in, her purity, and so lured the maiden to a woodland. There she was ravaged and impregnated. She fell into grief and suffered through her pregnancy. She wasted away as the babes grew. When I learnt what Nemesis had done, I went to see Aura. She just lay in her bed, at home, in the dark. I had to see her, but I was too ashamed to face her myself. Some say it was a river god, some say it was Dionysus, but I still do not know the truth. I do not wish to. I had some huntresses watch her for the duration of her pregnancy. On Olympus, I argued with Nemesis. When I took the matter to Zeus, he sided with her. I had asked for a punishment, and it was done. But death was a better punishment than this. Aura's mental state deteriorated the bigger the children grew. When her waters broke, she was a hair away from utterly mad. The pain, the birth, the revelation of it all, she snapped. She bore 2 children. In her insanity, she took her own child and split him into pieces, biting and tearing it into chunks. It was a horror. I watched from a distance. but leapt into action at the sight. The blood, the memories of my own mother and my brother. I snatched the other child before she could get her hands on it. She looked at me with empty eyes. No longer human at all, something lost and gone from them. Nothing would reach her. She snarled as she saw me hold her child. Then tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked to the balcony. She ran to it, screaming, and did not stop. She barreled over the balcony into the waters below. But she stopped screaming. I transformed her into sea foam as she hit the waves, ending her torment once and for all. I took her last child with me to Olympus under cover of night. There I found Nemesis again. I placed the child at her feet and told her to give it to its father. We were cold for a time, but I understand her now. My time experiencing the few mortals I have has made me understand her place, the necessity of her. Yet she respects that I prefer to handle my own affairs.
I see. It is good of you to save the child, my goddess. Poor Aurora. In all the tales of punishment and transgressions, this take shows your mercy best of all. Thank you, goddess, for sharing. Are there other stories? Mortals that you have pitied and saved, perhaps?
I am a protector, Aethon. I save women and girls. I provide a sanctuary, a salvation from the lust of the world and from the confusion and complexity of civilization, cities and culture and hierarchy. Here we are the same. We are hunters, predators that seek prey, no longer prey ourselves. I give them power when I can and save them from pain when I cannot. Clinis, Artemic, and Ortygius. Leto and I helped them, transformed them into birds when my brother's wrath fell upon them. An under-eagle, a lark, and a billy-tit. Then there was Erigone, a princess of Argos. I switched her out when her half-brother turned on her and her parents. Melegrides. The princesses of Aetolia fell into grief for the loss of their brother, Melagros. The very same Melagros that the bore, for they were all the children of King Oeneus. Their grief was too much to bear, so I made them into guinea hens. Humans can hold such memory and emotion, so much so it can destroy the life they have. By changing their physical forms, they are spared of that suffering. Memories and emotion that is too complex for the bird bodies I gave them. They are free. Freer than they would be as women. Next is Procris, a lady of Attica. She was my hunting companion in youth, but did not take the vows. She chose a different life. She chose love. A life with a husband and children. But my family can be just as spiteful as mankind. For Eos of the Dawn caught sight of her husband, took him from her, and tried to make him hers eternally. Yet Procris, she came to me, begged me to help her win back her husband. And for our fond memories shared, and for my care for her, I bestowed gifts upon her to woo her husband back. Hunting dogs and a javelin, but this was no ordinary weapon. It was enchanted to never miss its mark. Little did I know that he would turn the weapon on her, and she would perish to its point. I tried to help her in a journey that was not mine, and yet she was lost to the world anyway.
I see. Grief and pain. It seems we humans have far less redeeming qualities. Your experience with mankind is so filled with pain. Is there any good to humankind at all?
It is not just man. I have saved the nymphs, Peren, Pholo, and Briodmatis. I have spared them from pain also. I may not enjoy nor embody humanity in its civilization like my brother. But of course there is still good, Aethon. My huntresses are not just divine nymphs, but mortal women and girls. Take Cyrene and Polyboa.
Artemis gestures to the huntress on the logs next to her. First, the older, dark-haired woman. She had a pair of hounds. I had not noticed was my notation. They sat at her feet, perfectly obedient. The girl on the other side was much younger, with lighter hair. A child's face. She sat lower than the others, but was as stone-faced as the other two. Not cold, just calm.
Cyrene was a Thalassian princess once. Polyboa, a princess of Legdomonia, joined our hunt quite young. She does not appear old enough to hunt by mortal standards, but she has lived 3 times your lifetime already. These are not the only mortals that have passed from this earth to become my immortal companions. Apis, Loxo, and Hierge. They were 3 Hyperborean maidens. They journeyed to the Isle of Delos and prayed at my shrine there. When they passed too soon, they joined me in our hunt. Aspalis, a lady of Melet, in Phiothotis. She suffered the same fate as my priestess in Arcadia. Found a man who had plans for her, ended her life before he could. I took pity on her and switched out her body with a perfect statue. She still stands at that shrine and is worshipped at my side. But she has joined us in the hunt. Daphne, a Laconian princess, spent her time hunting in the woods of the Peloponnese. I gave her the gift of shooting straight. One day she will join us too. But time is waning, Aethon. The sun will begin to rise soon.
Of course, my goddess. I will be away not a moment too late. But you did mention Hippolytus. As one of the few men in your favor, and as a man who is irked by a lingering question, I must know.
Hippolytus was a rare man. He was fully devoted to me, stayed pure and virginal, rejected all sexuality and desire. This angered both Eros and Aphrodite. For though she has almost every grown man and woman enthralled to her spell, she is jealous. She wants what she cannot have most of all. She hates that her power has its limitations. For try as she might, he would not falter, would not be tempted by beauty or lust, determined to either win him or kill him. She devised a plot. If jealousy can make you ugly, Aphrodite would be the worst looking in my family. But her schemes paid off, for my loyal Hippolytus lay dead by the end, strapped to his own carriage and reins, but fallen out. He was dragged on his face for miles. You could barely resemble him once it was done. This was in the time of Asclepius, and I begged his help. He was brought back by him. But Aethon, you are out of time.
I thank you for your time, goddess. But I would ask before I leave, would you like to hear the truth about Orion? Your brother Apollo, he sends a message through the oracle of Delphi.
Aethon of Ephesus, your time has run out. Whatever message my twin has for me, he can deliver himself. For you are one of the most prideful and arrogant humans I have met in quite some time. You cover your words in honey and think them kind, but your intent is clear. Cyrene, Polyboa, now!
What? My goddess, no! They seized my parchments and papers, snatched a stylus from my hands. All of my notes were swiftly thrown upon the fire.
Aethon of Ephesus, my life, my stories are my own. You are not the greatest historian, and you never will be, for you will not be remembered. What makes you think you deserve to tell the tales of the gods? Now, run! He scrambled to his feet then, as I drew my bow. The fire embers burnt low, and the red skies painted the world with it. I drew an arrow from my quiver as Aethon started to run away. I called to my huntresses, sent a signal with my hands, and they leapt from the bush. A horn sounded. The hunt began. Dozens of women emerged from the canopy, screaming as one, weapons raised, and my voice joined them. We chased after Aethon. I drew my bowstring taut again, aimed and fired. The running scholar fell to the floor with a cry, an arrow through the back of his knee. Blood spilled from the wound as he howled. My huntress's arrows began to rain down on his shoulders and arms. He panted and gargled on blood, like the goat he brought here to me. I loaded my last arrow and aimed for his eye, and fired. It shot straight through, bathed in red when it hit the tree stump behind him. Many will know my tales, but they will be my choice, not from the mouth of Aethon or any mortal. The words of Apollo that were unsaid, the revel we held on the stained ground, are tales for another time.
Living Mythology videos are brought to you by Voldemort and Lightbringer. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider liking and subscribing, or even sharing it as an offering to the great gods of the algorithm. If you wish to support the channel, then we have a Patreon link in the pinned comment, or do consider giving a one-off super thanks if we have indeed earned your bounty. Until next time, fare thee well and dream amazing dreams.